Hi. So I wanted to talk for a moment about how the body holds on to trauma. So I'm a trauma release therapist. It's not my main thing, it's one of the things that I've done for many years. And I think the way that I learned it is the most effective modality there is. It's not a modality that's necessarily named. And my mentor passed away a few years ago. It's a modality that is very intuitive, and she had certain things she brought to it. I evolved it over many years. And the point is, let's see, this is your body here. Oops. Yeah. It's going to be a very simple body. Probably should round this out first. You're beautiful. That's true. Another part of the story. Like I had a client who had a shoulder pain here. What does the shoulder have to do with a memory? So as I was touching the shoulder, this is part of what I do. A memory arose of him throwing a football. Now he was caught in this situation with a high school football player that was really good, and he was younger. He was caught in a situation where they were going to have a throwing contest for this woman. Right? You see how that's archetypal, this kind of Old West duel for this lady, though it involved a football. The other person threw a beautiful spiraling football. This guy threw something that just kind of wobbled around on the grass. His shoulder had failed him. He amputated this shoulder. Some years later, a pain manifests in this shoulder, and now we see why. It also somewhat was painful down the whole arm. Okay? Interesting. Another client was often scrunching her neck like a turtle. Went in here to the scalenes and touched this. Okay? I'm trying to just illustrate how this works. As I touched that, she hunched it even more, like the turtle in the shell again. What is that? I ask. That's like trying to keep your neck safe from what? She remembered a movie, an image arose in a movie, and there were many tears around this, and this is a movie, fictional, presumably, about a king, a just, righteous king that was beheaded. She saw it when she was a child. She never forget that. Neither did her body. So watch the imagery you take in all seriousness. Once we cleared that and she was able to process that, all it takes is, like in both these cases, this was the football, right? All it takes in both these cases is re-experiencing that. We don't learn that. We tuck that somewhere. That piece of us is gone. In ancient shamanism, they know this. When you tune back into this, that memory fills in that void. Another woman was having trouble with this leg. It was like very stiff and she had trouble walking. As I worked on this here, this is the quadriceps where we store fight or flight energy. They kind of look like this. She remembered seeing something very bizarre. A girl had gotten hit by a car. Boom. She got hit by a car in the leg, flew, and she was dead. So this lady had witnessed this car accident. I know we could do probably more modern car. There we go. And that was stored in her leg. Her leg had never worked correctly since. Why? Because her body was resonating with that scene. Ooh, that must have hurt. Right? It's the actual definition of empathy. You take on the pain. So we had to shed a lot of tears. She was young when she witnessed this. She was not able to shed the tears for the poor girl that passed away. And here's another. Very tight foot, left foot. This woman came to me with love challenges. She was with a sort of person with narcissistic tendencies. and they were breaking up, having trouble. I noticed this left foot was all bunched up. So what I did was I expanded, bent, kneeled over and touched that. That was surprising to her. And just opened up this foot. Went from being like this to being like this. This is how a foot is supposed to be. On the ground, on the earth. Earthing, all these things are ways to do this. These are energy conduits. They touch into the grass. They come up into our body. As I did this, what many tears. I'm just going to do a yin and yang here. Her mother had passed away when she was around 10. And she didn't really get a chance to grieve because she had to move on. She was raised by another relative. Can you imagine walking around like not quite being grounded in the world because the world is not safe? You lose that foundation. You know, the left side is the feminine and the right side is the masculine. So that made perfect sense in this case that was the mother. A few weeks later we met again. I had to do the same thing, and this was the father who had died a few years later. Again, same thing, opening up the foot, many tears. I didn't know any of these stories, by the way. I didn't know this was what we were working on. I was drawn to those places. You know what's amazing, though? The relationship transformed after that. She met someone else she loved. They were always going on journeys. She just felt a lightness in the intimacy realm, which she hadn't been able to experience before. Why? Because she was loving from no ground, no place of ground, no safe harbor. Isn't that amazing? We don't have to do anything. We have to, how do you put it? Remove something? It's almost like not even removing. It's like you bring the consciousness back down there. I do this through touch because when there's something painful, that's awareness. When that was a blank space and you bring awareness back, that fills in that void. When you fill in that void, any memory arises that was part of that emptiness. Okay? That's how this works. There's a few points. There's one on the arch of the foot here. There's one kind of out here that I use for this situation. There's a rib here. I think it was between the 5th and 6th rib. I'm going to do a little... What is that thing? I was touching a client's rib, and she was shuddering and shaking. What is that? I don't know. It always starts with I don't know. We explore more, flesh out the scene. She said, it feels like my lungs are filling up with blood. This memory came up where she had just been shot and she was dying. So she was really resisting that. I saw her whole body resisting that. Very powerful and beautiful moment. What do we do? What do we do when we're resisting something entirely? Correct. You give into that thing. So she said, I don't want to die. Let yourself die. Somatically, you have to die to come through that memory. Now, is this a past life memory, sort of an archetypal memory? We don't have to really define that. I'm sure she has her own take on that. That's great. That's her human experience. She should have her own take on it. Again, was able to meet a love that was like a higher vibration. A lot of beautiful things happened in her life after releasing this. The little eyeballs here. So why is this pen? Okay. So I just drew this circle because I was touching one client. When I touched a certain area up here, his face would turn blue. Blue. Oops. Why? He'd seen someone almost drown and he almost drowned in this water skiing thing. So whenever I touch a certain area, boom, blue face. Similar principle, whole body resisting. When your whole body is resisting like the fear of something, your life is entirely resistance. There's no flowing towards something. Let yourself drown. Drown. He drowned. He really got blue and he got really still for a minute. And then he came out of it and his face flushed red like it had gotten blood for the first time in decades. And he was laughing and crying, tears flowing. Beautiful. Okay? I'm just fleshing out this human here. That was a pretty rudimentary one initially. Okay. So again, this is the psoas. It kind of runs like from the lower spine down to here. Deep, deep under the abdomen. We sometimes touch into this. And these are your like primary fears in life. And this is when these are bound up, they can affect sex, digestion, energy, posture, back pain, a whole host of things. And they are bound up in a lot of people. You can tell by the posture, the way they sink. This is the personal power center, often collapses. So there are 3 centers here. Let me see if I can draw these out. You want these really in a nice line. That one's not very line. Head, heart, instinct. This is from the side, by the way. So if those aren't in a line, if you have something like this, right? This is a pretty common one. Head leading, pelvis leading, head kind of compensating, head-centered existence, sexual motivations, etc. When I see something, I see like sections of symmetries like this, and one is more collapsed than the other. When one's more collapsed, I go in to touch that, and that's where the memories arise. So imagine you're going up. You see how complicated this chart starts to get? Imagine this is one person that has all this, because it is. And then they come up to meet this other one person that they want to fall in love with. And this person's all like, they're a host of traumas too. Where is the place you can even meet? Like, is this hand free? Like, I've released trauma from a single finger, a single toe, a knee. Like, there's no place that I haven't seen trauma stored. Forget people who say it stores here or here or here. There are certain release points that are more effective. However, it definitely stores anywhere. It stores if you were... Here's another interesting one. Right arm. Lucy was in a relationship, stagnant relationship, couldn't evolve for a long time. This arm was stuck. What is going on with this arm? I moved it and touched it. Eventually I found that I had to hold it up like this. I had to hold it and kind of swing it. This is the thing I do a lot with clients in person. It's like you're holding a parent's hand. Sometimes, like, my mother would always pull me across the street, or they're pulling me somewhere. In this case, her father was pulling her, and her father had passed away many years ago. She'd never gotten to mourn it. She stored it in the shoulder where her somatic memory was of her father pulling her across the street. So after she cried for the first time about her father, she was in her 20s in this instance. And then she was able to marry this guy she'd been with, and they had a kid, and everything was beautiful. She was literally stuck in this one shoulder about her whole relationship. Isn't that amazing? Like, I can't impart to you, this isn't like hypothetical. These are all things that actually happen with people. These are the way people perceive the world, the way people store things. Did you think that a foot could affect your marriage or a shoulder? You were aware that you could energetically amputate your own arm. Like, another lady hated her feet. Boom, foot pains her whole life until we got her to love her feet. Why? This piece of my body let me down. I'm done with it. You do that with a certain piece of your organ, and your organ shuts down. You start to like lose vitality as your body has to live around this. So if this shoulder shut down, like the consciousness has to find a way to flow around it. It's very draining, and it's not very natural, it's not very symmetrical, it's not very human. Eventually, if you're all going around everything, what's even left? And a lot of people, one client was leaving a wedding, and she found out her partner had been unfaithful. It wasn't her wedding, she was a guest there. And boom! On the way out, she hit another car, cracked her sternum on the steering wheel. What? Literal broken heart. 20 years later, we're touching this. All these memories arise. There's a certain discomfort here. By the way, the ribs are meant to be fluid, kind of like an anemone, and they get all stiff like a cage. I know why the caged bird sings. You're stuck in this stiff thing. Remember how to be fluid, how to flow. Definitions, beliefs, labels, they keep us stuck They're not real. Like this person over here, okay, is like a constellation of cells being born and decaying, being born and died. So is this person. It's so much flow. What is stiff? Those skeletons you see that are in the anatomy room that are all these plastic bones, that's not how it is. Bones can flex and move. They're mostly water. Did you know that? Did you know that they can move and there's all these joints and they can articulate in really profound and beautiful ways? Also, in osteopathy, in craniosacral, the bones all hold spiritual significance. They knew, like the sacrum, the sacrum down here, it's in the back, where the snake is coiled, and Kundalini. How would the ancient Greeks know it was the sacrum, the sacred bone, where the spiritual force lives? It's like the coccyx down there is one of the first things that forms, and then start. I've also been working with an Indian woman, and we felt these snakes start to wind up the spine. She felt it. I don't define that because that's a certain belief system. If she wants to feel that, I can guide it and say, that's not happening. Put those straight up because that's less of an aberration, or whatever my belief system is. No, like we are there. I am there to witness without judgment, with compassion, what is occurring for the reality. Because it doesn't matter what point of here we enter in. The healing starts and then the healing continues. The healing's like a wave. The healing will keep going. It's beautiful. So, this is a man and a woman and everything in between. Right? This is you. This is me. And this is the lover. She looks more feminine, but use your imagination. I just wanted to impart to you how profound and beautiful the constellation that we call life is, and this instrument for living life is the body, and everything we thought we know about it is wrong. You can apply this down to the molecular level and out to the level of universe, as Buckminster Fuller called it, and you're going to have equally profound connection and interconnection, interweaving in a dance. So again, I'm Stephen Button. I hope that lends some clarity. Let me know if you have questions. Thank you so much.